Right. By way of an introduction, my name is Chan Aikanaika. I'm a senior director in the systems engineering team here in Veeam, based out of UK. I'm part of the global hands-on lab admin team, which we will tell you a bit more about as we go through. But along with me, I have three other colleagues who represents various other geos. I'll let each of you introduce yourselves, guys. Please feel free to open up your mics and the cameras.
Oh, thanks, Chen. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. Thanks for joining. My name is Ken Liu. I'm on the Americas Hands-On Lab team. I'm a systems engineer based in the Eastern U.S., Atlanta, Georgia, to be specific. Looking forward to the event.
Thank you, Ken.
I'll go next. My name is Jason Ackert. I'm a solutions architect, and just like Ken, I'm covering the Eastern U.S. And I take care, not only do I take care of some of the hands-on labs aspects that are customer facing, I actually have all of the demo labs that all the SEs in the Americas run as well, and good for everybody to be here. And I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. James, you're on mute.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, yeah, I represent the UKI team. I report directly into Chan, and quite a few of the on-demand and instructor-led labs are run by myself and created by myself. So, yeah, I guess that's why I've been invited to take the slack for anything that doesn't work today.
Excellent. So let's get started then. Before we get started, in terms of housekeeping, we are all dialing from home, so we're not preparing for any fire alarms or anything silly like that. But main ask from all of you is to get engaged, be interactive, and if you have any feedback, you're very welcome to raise your hand up, put a question in the chat group, or just open up your mic and simply speak. Your participation is very much encouraged throughout the session. So in terms of moving on, just a quick recap of what Veeam Hands-On Labs are, just so that everybody's up to speed. We have various different types of hands-on labs. In-person classroom-based hands-on labs is one of the ones that that most countries offer. I don't know if some of you may have taken part in some of these workshops. There are some countries that don't offer this as well. So if you have any interest in taking part in one of these hands-on lab workshops, typically led by a Veeam systems engineer, please reach out to your Veeam channel manager or the partner manager or the account manager. That's the main ask. However, the most popular one for us when it comes to hands-on labs is this. This is the end-user self-serviceable hands-on labs that's available through a landing page. The QR code is there if you haven't come across this before, but the very fact that you're on this call means I'm sure all of you know this already. It's an on-demand self-serviceable landing page where you can request your labs on demand, and then they'll get provisioned, and you can follow those guides and go through the lab exercise. So those are for the end users, but similarly, you have a partner specific version of that as well that's available for our partners. Those are the ones that are resellers, distributors, and various technology alliance partners of Veeam, who can also access these labs, plus some additional labs that are partner specific through our Pro Partner Portal. If you're not a Veeam partner, if you don't work for a Veeam partner, this may not make much sense to you. Feel free to ignore it. But if you are working for a Veeam partner, please try and make sure that you access the hands-on labs through this link, because you will have access to some additional labs that aren't generally available to the end users. Behind the scene within Veeam Hands-On Lab platform, there are three different types of labs. The first one are the data center type labs. So these are the ones where we simulate a VMware or a Hyper-V type of a data center, where Veeam products such as Veeam Backup and Replication or Veeam Recovery Orchestrator would be deployed for various different use cases. Alongside those, we also have cloud native labs. These are the more sort of born in the cloud, Veeam Backup for AWS or Azure type of labs, where we use a different platform, different third-party platform behind the scene to build these labs, given that they work differently. So what does this mean to you? Depending on the lab you pick, you may be presented with one of these labs that may look different from the other type in terms of the user experience, how the guides are presented, etc., etc. And then the third one, and this is fairly new. This is more of a guided demo rather than a lab. They're short, 5 to 10, 15 minutes long, not any longer, type of guided demos that we are starting to experiment with. The first couple of these have gone live as of yesterday, specifically focusing on Veeam Data Cloud and some of the solutions that we have on the Veeam Data Cloud platform. Keen to get your feedback as well. These are aimed more at the beginner level, whereas the other two are more advanced technical people. So we are hoping to see a lot of take up from sort of beginners or non-technical people when it comes to the third type. Any questions on the lab types from anyone? Any questions in the chat? I can't see anything. Okay. Right, move on. We also thought it'll be important to highlight a little peculiarity that we have currently in the Veeam Hands-on Lab platform. While all of you access the Veeam Hands-on Labs either through the global landing page, if you're a customer, or through the partner landing page, behind the scene, what you're shown as labs, available labs, or the lab catalog, depends on which region or which geo you come from. So if you live in America, so that's US, Canada, or Latin America, for example, if you live in any of those sort of continents, what you see when you click on that link would be different to what a user in Europe would see, for example, or Africa would see. Similarly, if you come from Asia Pacific, what you see would be also different to the other two geos. This is because of an internal reason within Veeam that we are looking to sort of harmonize moving forward. Up until now, that behavior could not be changed, which means when you click on that link, you'll see what's local to your geo in terms of the available lab options. Starting from this week, you have the ability to directly go to the backend. And those are the links to go access cross-geo lab catalogs behind the scene. It's basically, in case you haven't recognized, it's the same link as the main landing page, but you have a hashtag at the end. Hashtag AMER for Americas, and hashtag EMEA for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and then APJ for Asia Pacific. So if you haven't tried this out, feel free to try this out. We'll try and put the links in the chat group as well. And hopefully this should give you a bit more access to a bit more labs depending on which geo you're based out of. Okay. Hopefully you find this useful. Did anybody know about this behavior, by the way, when it comes to Veeam Hands-on Labs, where you were always diverted to your local geo before? Was it, did anybody not know this? Hands up if you didn't, please. Okay, that's a few people from what I can see. So hopefully that was of use. We'll add a community post as well to sort of document this for the benefit of everybody else after this call, but we wanted to sort of share this with you all first in terms of these dedicated backend links that we now have available. Pro Partner Labs also follow a similar geo tagging process, but rather than using the IP address of the user to decide which geography they're coming from, that uses the registration of the partner profile that is hard coded. So if you're a user working for a Veeam partner in Americas, you will be directed to the Americas specific set of labs, and so on and so forth. Okay. Wanted to highlight a few new labs that we brought out. Some of you may have seen this. There's a Veeam Data Cloud specific set of labs that I mentioned earlier. that are now live. They are available via in EMEA, so you'll have to use the EMEA specific link. There's a globally new lab that's available globally around Kasten for Kubernetes, Veeam Kasten for Kubernetes. That's a very popular lab as well. AI-powered ransomware threat management is another popular lab that was probably about a couple of months old, but yeah, hugely popular. And then recovery orchestration and data mobility to Azure is a fairly new lab as well, along with the Veeam backup and replication advanced lab. All of these labs have their native location. So if when you click on the link, if those labs aren't visible, try and go to either hashtag EMEA or hashtag APJ lab or hashtag America lab to get access to those labs. Similarly, when it comes to partner specific labs, there are few specific labs that only can be accessed by partners, such as how to install and configure Veeam backup and replication, how to upgrade, and how to run Veeam health check utility for best practices, lab, etc., etc. These are very partner specific labs built to educate and enable Veeam partners, hence why they aren't available to anybody else other than Veeam partners. Any questions so far on the new labs?
Chan, I've got one. Am I allowed to ask questions?
Please.
Fair enough. How do you guys do it in EMEA from a language perspective? Are they all in English? Are there French labs, German labs? How does that work over there for you guys?
Great question. All the labs as it stands now are in English. There aren't any sort of regional language based labs. We have plans in Europe, for example, to um, create specific lab guides and have them translated into regional languages, but we're not quite there yet. So everything is in English at the moment.
I'll jump in here on that because that's actually not an uncommon request, and I'll be speaking to some of the survey results that we've received on hands-on labs. But localization is actually quite a popular topic, and I would say for today for the on-demand labs, while they're written in English, if you do want something more localized, oftentimes our SE-led instructor-led labs, I would say especially in APJ region, tend to be more localized for the language there. So contact your local Veeam SE to find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Good. Like the participation.
Hey, hi, everyone. I have a quick question. So, while doing the lab, so we have an stuck in somewhere else. So, when I get any support from the VM for the partners.
Sorry, Anand, could you repeat the question again, please?
Okay. So, while we're doing the labs and all, we have stuff stuck in somewhere else. That so, can we get any support from our VM support team? And our support is available.
Oh, yes, great question. Hold that thought. We have a really good section that talks about how you can get in touch when it comes to lab support. We'll cover that under that slide. So hold that thought, please. Good question, by the way.
Sure. So my next question was, can we get this links for the labs links? So how it is getting the links and all? So you could provide the details, right?
Group actually, during the Q&A section, we'll share all the 3 geo-specific
Great.
lab links in the chat.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
There you go. I've got my animation slightly delayed. You can see now which lab is home to where. Therefore, you know which one needs a hashtag in the link to access if you're from a different geo. Okay. Right. Ken, I believe you're going to present through this.
Yes, tips and tricks. People always think that's why we're a community here, so we can share and learn from each other. And I think for many of you that are probably joining today are probably people that are, I'm assuming, familiar with hands-on labs, have used it more than once, and always, as we're all technologists, looking for better ways to be more efficient. But number one, like first, I think it's important to understand that this isn't an official Veeam product or tool. This is if I were to dial back on the history of the hands-on lab, this was something that was developed, frankly, out of the pandemic. We always had hands-on labs at Veeam. If you've ever attended Veeam, either virtually or on-prem, and we in 2020 we found that we had the need to still be able to educate our customers and partners, despite the fact that we were all trapped in our homes, and so we were able to take the Veeam platform that we use for our hands-on labs on site and make it available for everybody on demand. But even still, it is not an official Veeam product and tool. It is supported primarily by a group of volunteer systems engineers. So, um, yep, there we go. So as far as support goes, and Anand, you had this question. There's no live chat feature, but I'll tell you this distro list goes directly to some of us on the call today, as well as many others that are on this volunteer team. So we are staffed globally around the world. So whether it's EMEA, APJ, or Americas, someone will be able to get to you, and hopefully in a timely manner. I would say, from my experience, sometimes internally people will log an internal help desk ticket and it gets routed to us. It may take 4 or 5 hours, but at the same time, I've seen the same request go through the distro list and it is addressed almost immediately. So take note of that email address.
If I may add to that as well, actually, the reason why we mentioned those 3 geo-specific setup that we have internally is because we want to kind of create that awareness amongst you guys, so that when you raise a call, if you do raise an email for a support ask, please always mention which geo that you're based out of, because that'll help us ensure that the right team behind the scene from the right geo picks that email or the request up and then respond to you quickly.
Yes, great point, Chan. Actually, I would add to that, to help us expedite it, what geo you're from. If you have provide the name of the lab, or even your email address, we're able to query that. And if you want, give us the section of the lab guide that you're in, so we could go directly to where you're at and be able to provide a prompt answer. Otherwise, as with many support cases, we may have to go back and forth to extract information. But so as far as the platform goes, and this is a common, for especially if you're a new user, sometimes the expectation is that we all want things immediately these days. The way that these labs are created, the platform that we leverage, it's primarily on vCloud Director if it's a VMware-based lab or even Hyper-V-based lab, and it will send a notification email once the lab has been provisioned. So we basically have images that we provision labs from these templates. We deploy the labs, and as soon as the labs are in ready to boot up, the emails will go out. Now, the emails, the deployment process will take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, usually less, depending on how busy the lab environment is. And then, of course, the email delivery process is what it is. It's in the cloud. So sometimes it's immediate, sometimes there is a bit of a delay. So just understand that and know that it may take some time to come. But what you don't want to do, and I've seen this, as users will register and register and register several times. That actually won't speed up the process. In fact, it'll create a bit of a queue. If you don't receive an email, though, I would say reach out to the distro list or your Veeam representative, and we can help you out.
Absolutely.
Yes, to my point about people that keep registering or clicking on this registration button over and over and over again, because it does impact others that are using the platform. We do limit the number of repeat registrations in some of the geos for that reason. So
yeah, this is super important as well, I think. Yeah, absolutely. And if I can add to that as well, this is super important for you to be aware of, because one of the things that we are working on at the moment as an enhancement is to notify users who exceed this repeat registration maximum limit that we have in place. At the moment, system doesn't warn you to say that you already used this lab 3 times, therefore you can't register. We're working to sort of make sure that that message is passed back to you if you are going past the limit. But at the moment, once you've used that same lab 3 times, or in certain geos, especially in Europe, it's capped at 3. You won't get anything as a negative acknowledgement when you try to register. It'll look as though you registered, but you'll never get an email because behind the scene is blocked. So it's important for you to remember this. We are looking to lift these limits, by the way. We'll talk about the futures as we go into the sort of interactive chat session towards the end of this presentation. But for the time being, the limit is there due to internal reasons. Sorry, Ken, back to you.
And this is lab durations can now be extended by via self-service through your lab session on the upper left-hand corner. So this is actually a pretty new feature that was rolled out. I don't know, within the last 2 months, maybe not even that long. Probably as I get into the survey results, our number one request, maybe those of you on the call have experienced this as well, is I'm in a lab session and I just need more time to finish it because maybe I got distracted during the workday, or my manager asked me to do some other task. Similar, if you ever watch Netflix, where it says, "Are you still there?" You click on it and it'll extend the time. Same feature is available in our labs. So we'll have a default time of when you first join the lab. Most of the labs, at least here in the Americas, are designed to be completed within the first hour, hour and a half, and we'll extend you that time. But if you need more time, because these are real labs, disposable environments where you can go and try different things, you can auto extend, up to 2 times through the total duration for these on-demand labs, which is 4 hours. But as a tip, be sure you keep an eye on that the feature within the interface to extend the lab, as well as the timer. There's a timer there that tells you what time the lab is going to expire, because sometimes that happens to users. They'll forget to do that. They're in the middle of configuring their orchestrator, and then the time limit hits and it gets blown away, unfortunately, and they have to start all over again.
I was just going to add, if I can, Ken, as well, if there's any labs where you're finding you're having to extend because you've just not got enough time, please let us know and give us some feedback, because I know, for example, the VRO lab there's quite a lot to it. So on the community or via that distro, just let us know and we can adjust as needed as well.
Absolutely. I think that feedback loop is super important. We are working on improving that feedback process as well down the line to make it a bit more seamless and integrated to the lab platform itself. But in the meantime, if you can use the distribution list or engage through the community group and share that feedback, that'll be super valuable to us. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to the next slides, we thought we'd also use the opportunity to highlight some of the hidden gems in the lab platform. And I've quoted 4 specific labs here, mainly because of a few points that we thought would be worthwhile highlighting. But there's a ton of other labs across all 3 geo lab catalogs that have some really cool features. One of the ones that we see that's super powerful is the AI-powered ransomware threat management lab, which has quite a lot of Veeam backup and replication 12.1 specific capabilities and features. Things like being able to leverage YARA rule support for malware detection and various activities around disaster recovery orchestration that's available in the enterprise level DR orchestration with Veeam Lab, where some of the content JB will actually give you a live James will give you a live demo later on of this, where some of the tools that we use in the lab can also be hopefully repurposed elsewhere for you in your production environments to test and run through certain scenarios. Also, the third lab that I've highlighted on the screen there, avoid platform lock-ins with Veeam flexible data recovery, is quite a clever lab that shows you how Veeam can be leveraged to do platform conversions of of virtual machines behind the scene. For example, being able to convert a virtual machine from VMware to Hyper-V, which could be quite timely for some of you in terms of some of the challenges that some of the customers are facing at the moment with certain repricing structure. Also, the last one, but not least, the machine learning, Terraform, and Microsoft Teams bot activities through Veeam API Lab. This lab focused on how to leverage Veeam API for various advanced use cases. We have a lot of enterprise customers that actually deploy Veeam in so many different enterprise-grade environments, and where certain capabilities aren't available out of the box, they leverage the API to kind of make those happen and build that into an existing workflow of their own. And that's what we wanted to highlight through this lab. It's pretty cool when when you can use the guide to figure out how to integrate your Veeam with your Teams channel for automating certain things, or to leverage Terraform for build Veeam into your CI/CD pipeline. If you haven't tried any of these labs out, I would strongly recommend that you give it a shot, give it a test, and share your feedback, because you will learn quite a lot of cool capabilities, as well as get access to some handy tools that we leverage inside these labs as well. Okay, moving on. James,
Yep.
can you give
So
us a demo of some of these?
what I wanted to do is I've got the two first ones there, the AI powered ransomware, and I've got the recovery orchestrator. Now, the recovery orchestrator, as I mentioned, is quite a lengthy one, so I've done a bit of a sort of bake it and start it early. But the AI powered, the reason I like that so much, and I think it's probably one of our hidden gems, is to test those new features in the ransomware scanning. And when we know this from building the labs, and you may have it in your own environments, it's difficult. You don't want to be putting ransomware on, and you need to get the right amount of files encryption in order to trigger the event to test it. So we've already got the lab there, we've got everything predefined and good to go for you. So I'm just going to share screen one. Here we go. And you see that okay? It's just a desktop background at the moment, hopefully. Yep. So starting with AI-powered ransomware, I've got just the standard hands-on lab. It's not been customized in any way, apart from the fact I've just done a couple of steps from the guide. Anyone who's already run it will know. We just set up our backup of our prod server first of all, and then we've got an ICAR VM that we set a job up for, and we run the job. Once
James,
we've run that job,
screen, please.
say again, sorry?
Could you maximize the screen, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, maybe drop the resolution, as Tim says, to 1080p on the lab. It's a bit hard to read, I think, for some of the people.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Trying to think of the easiest way to do it.
Just do it on the lab.
Yeah, hang on.
Yeah.
Because I'm remoted in, so let me bring up the actual lab for you. Hang on. Make it easier.
Oh.
This was one of our tips and tricks, to be fair. If you do it via the web, make sure you set, it's always good to set it to 32-bit and 1920. So here we go. Is that showing a little bit better now? Because we'll do it through the web interface. Yeah, okay. So I've got prod server backup, I've got ICAR, and one of the first steps that we do, and this is what I was saying about having those things ready to just run. We've got our ransomware one, which we trigger. When that runs, it's going to go ahead and create your SID area there, because I already ran it, because I didn't want to waste the time running the backup, but it creates numerous encrypted files. And it says in the guide, if you wanted to, if you're interested, to go and have a look. So we have a little ransomware E drive, and it creates enough encrypted files that it will definitely trigger any sort of alerting and these .enc files. So that's on our prod server, and then we go ahead and we rerun the backup. In the interest of time, I've already ran it, and what we've got is we've triggered our, in our inventory, malware detection. We can see prod server has got, not only is it showing us that there's a malware detection, it tells us the type. Now, what I really like about this is as we look through, we can see our restore points. It's flagged the restore point, and in that inventory, it's told us what that restore point, what it thinks or what it's detected it as. So as we work through it, we've got other ways of triggering and other methods. So, for example, we've got a ransomware note. So if I copy that on, which I'll do now. So now there's not only is there encrypted files on our test machine, we've got a ransomware note as well as things start to build out and a potential threat. So I'll rerun our backup. And in the interest of not wasting everyone's time, I'll jump onto the next lab and let that run, because it will take a couple of minutes just to do its incremental backup. So with that, let me just bring that back up to a decent size that people can actually see. Here we go. So this is a little bit of a hot off the press because it's the VRO lab, but you may or may not have seen very recently 12.1.2 has been released and version 7.1 of VRO. This lab is running 7.1, so I wanted to show you Veeam Recovery Orchestrator 7.1, and I guess one of the enhancements that's worth mentioning is we have down here a Yara rules, so we can we've got a nice interface now. Rather than going into program files and backend replication and Yara rules, we've literally got this within VRO, and I have added my find CC numbers, which is Yara rules can be as complex or as simple as you like. For the purpose of our demonstration in the 12.1 lab, I just use this very simple Yara rule that looks for 16-digit numbers and credit cards. So I've added that into my interface, and then what we would do, we've got our, if I come out of administration, we've got our recovery plans. If I just run a silver restore plan, I can then specify that I want to do a scan of that plan. Now, so I can show you the scan. That scan will run, and then if I just come out of Recovery Orchestrator, what will happen is we'll get the results, and it will detect it detects it because I have got some credit card numbers on there. And if I just show you in the last 24 hours, we can see the scan backup. We can see it triggered the Yara rule, and the rule that triggered it was my find CC. And then in the scan log, we've got the mounted volume, the share, the directory, subdirectories, and the file that it believes is there. Now, ccs.txt, we can see indeed there are some 16-digit numbers there that have been detected, and it points us to the exact file and where we are, so we can go off and find it and say, why is this here, or whatever. You know, very simple rule, and like I say, they can be as complicated as you like, but the idea being that an antivirus scan is a very widespread multiple signature scan. With our Yara rules, we can use them for very targeted scans, and here I'll do it just on personal information and credit card numbers, but it shows you how it works and how it points us in the direction, tells us where it is within our server. So that was one I wanted to show you there on the Yara side of things, and that enhancement 7.1, which I really like because it saves you having to sort of go into the files. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning is we have got a GitHub page, and these Yara rules, that one there, I didn't create that myself. I found a much more complicated one, and I just picked out the bit I wanted. So that's how we go ahead and do that. And then the final bit I wanted to show, which is I guess my favorite bit of the VRO lab, is we've got this disaster button here, which will simulate a failure of our entire production cluster. So I've already started to fail over a couple of bits because of the time to show you this. But we've got our my Platinum service, which is a little Bitnami web server that I run, and it's running our nice hands-on lab mock-up website here that I've got. And as you can see, it's running on production. The website's up and running, and we're going to go ahead and simulate a disaster. Now, this is all from the guide. It's one of the steps in there. I've just skipped through a bit of the guide and created some plans ready. And this will go ahead. What it will show us is that the production web server is down. It will show us that the production file server is down, and it will show us that our Linux server is down as well. So first of all, we're pinging our Linux server. It's opened a new tab to show us the website, which is now down. There you go, it's not loading properly. And it will tell us, yeah, a disaster has happened, production is down. You know, just to sort of give us that idea, show us what's happening. We can see all of those machines are now down. Web server's not available. So we've got, you know, you could have something like this for your DR test. Very simple. Takes out of production. How fast can we recover it? In the interest of time, I'd already started the gold and silver jobs. But let's go ahead and run the platinum job. So it's a case of run the failover. I'm going to use a short-term restore point because I've got the absolute minimum amount of RPO and RTO that I want with CDP, continuous data protection, and use the latest restore point and go ahead and run that. While that's running, in the guide, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily read the intro bit at the start of the guide, but in it, what I have defined is, hopefully you can see that okay. We've got this recovery solutions objectives, options, sorry, and our service level agreements. So we can see anything that's deemed platinum uses that tier 1 job, and it's 5-minute RTO and a 2-minute RPO. So that's what we've got recovery orchestrator set to, and our automated reporting will report on that. So if this takes more than 2 minutes to fail over our website, it will give us the reason why, and it will fail. So all part of the VRO lab that I wanted to sort of show us. So let's move that back. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that's all good. So it is failed over now, or it's failing over, and very shortly our website will be back. When it boots back up in a second, we can see the CDP replica there, ready to go, and it's just a case of it power. There you go, starting to power up. So all of that done as part of the CDP plan, all in sort of sub 2 minutes. As soon as it normally loads, our web server will be up and running. Okay.
Excellent.
No worries.
Thank you, JB. And hopefully, I think the purpose of these little demos is to kind of give you a sneak peek behind the scene of some of the key labs and some of the capabilities. Also, James mentioned the fact that maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, that we've got a 7.1 Veeam Recovery Orchestrator 7.1 based lab, which will be added to the lab catalog pretty soon. So great news for those of you who are looking forward to wanting to play with that. That should be available over the next few months. Right, I'm going to share my screen back. There you go. Moving on from there, Ken, you're going to take us through some of the attendee feedback about hands-on labs, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll start with just tying back to the previous demo that we had. Sometimes we get feedback that as soon as we make an announcement of a new product, we'll get feedback. Well, when is that going to be available in the lab? Well, there you go. For those of you that attended today, we have Orchestrator 7.1, which we announced this morning. So can't always promise that it'll be that expeditious, but that was pretty impressive. Thank you, James. So as far as the survey goes, this is something that this is a community volunteer SE group, that's supporting this. And of course, I think in traditional Veeam fashion, whether it's the Veeam forums or speaking to your local Veeam SE or your sales rep or whoever it may be, I think we pride ourselves here at Veeam in collecting feedback from our customers and our community to make our products better. And the hands-on lab is no different. Since its inception, we've always since early inception, we've integrated a simple Survey Monkey. Many of you that are on may have taken the survey. It's at the very last section of our lab guide, at least here in the Americas. And from that, we've been able to solicit quite a response. I'd say over 1,200, which if you think about, a sample population, I think even Dave Russell will tell you, who, if those of you probably familiar with Dave Russell, he came from Gartner. Him and Jason Buffington and his team authored the Data Protection Trends report that we published here at Veeam. And they will tell you, and they did I heard this on a podcast, they shared like behind the scenes, and they'll tell you that the average industry analyst surveys about 300 persons for their sample data for their report. So the fact that we have well over 1,200 responses, I think, is a good reflection on what you and the community are asking for when it comes to the hands-on labs. So the survey, it's 10 questions. As I mentioned, we put at the end of every guide. I think many of the questions have remained pretty static, hence the high number of responses for the survey. But I think it does give us, we feel, a pretty accurate gauge on what's being asked out there. As far as primary reasons for completing the lab, many of you out there you want to learn, and we're thankfully able to provide a free tool for you to use, at your leisure to learn. Maybe you're new to Veeam, or you've read about a new announcement and you want to check out Orchestrator 7.1, and if you whether want to buy it or upgrade it in your environment. So self-paced learning is by far the number one use case. Where did you hear about it? Well, this is it's pretty balanced. I think at this point it used to not be. I think it was more maybe our Veeam sellers promoting it, but it's pretty balanced now. I think hands-on labs, the use of it is pretty popular. So, but still, I think your sales are probably more commonly your SEs are probably the ones that are sharing this information with you. And then what type of lab setting? For at least for speaking for us in the Americas, on-demand remains the most popular. I think that's probably the case with many things. We're all busy, and being able to consume at our leisure, at our own time, whether that be nights and weekends, whenever it may be, it remains very popular. However, I would say the instructor-led labs, there's a ton of value with that. Someone was asking earlier about localization. I know, like in APJ, some of our labs lab guides may be written in Japanese, for example, or just the value of having a Veeam SE present to be able to answer questions or show different scenarios and use cases, or in some cases, labs that aren't available on demand yet, where you may be able to get a preview, maybe a beta product or whatnot. So pay attention to the instructor-led labs and when they're available. And then this is a metric that we're particularly proud of. It's would you recommend it to a friend or a colleague? And Veeam, at Veeam, we're very proud of our NPS score here, our Net Promoter Score. We talk about that often. You may hear, but for us, how many responses? 1,195 responses. So I think over 98.6% of you who responded, and again, this is a big sample population here, said yes, you would recommend this to a colleague. So thank you. That's very reassuring for us that we've done a pretty good job with this. And for the 17 of you that said no, we know who you are. Just kidding, we don't. This is completely anonymous. But if you respond a no, we hope that you shared some feedback, because honestly, that is how we make this lab better. When we, I think the case in point would be the feature to extend the time. That was derived from the survey because people said they needed more time. So we truly do pay attention to what you say in the community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. I could not echo that message more. That feedback loop is super important for us to continue to drive the future of this labs platform. We do have this slide as well, Ken, if you're okay to cover this as well.
Yeah. So this is continuing on with the survey. Uh, for this event, I did want to highlight 3 particular questions that I think would be most meaningful for this group here. And if you've taken the survey, you've probably seen these questions. But number 1, what part of the lab did you like? Number 2, how do you think the lab can be improved? And 3, are there other Veeam solutions that you'd like to see made into a Veeam hands-on lab? So number 1, this is the question that we probably like to read in the survey the most, albeit we need to take the good with the bad. But I'd say the overwhelmingly popular response was just an appreciation from the community for the hands-on lab experience, the fact that we're providing a real live disposable environment with practical exercises and scenarios. I dare say there's not too many manufacturers out there that probably provide this for free for their community. And then 2, thank you, Dipin. Ease of use and navigation. I know it's not perfect, but the feedback has been generally clear and detailed instructions. So thank you very much for that. Albeit we are subject to the occasional grammatical error or typo. We're not English majors here, so for that, please share the feedback. That is super important because we can make corrections very, very quickly. Actually, a cool thing about the lab guide is we can actually make changes on the fly. So if you refresh your screen, if there is a typo, we could actually make a correction very quickly. One of the neat things about the platform. Second question, what part of the lab do you think could be improved? Obviously, more time was by and far the number 1 request, which we rolled out the feature to auto extend, and we'll probably have some other things to help with that. And then just some general UI technical improvements, email notifications, maybe not received, which is why we wanted to add that to our tips and tricks section. Copy and paste. I know with certain labs like the 365 labs and some of the other labs, the copy and paste functionality isn't optimal, I would say, but make sure you understand that. And there's in the Americas Lab guides, there is a quick video that showcases how to use that. And that's important to watch those videos before you start the lab so you don't get confused later on as you get into the guide. And then the final question, are there other Veeam solutions that you'd like to see made into a hands-on lab? And this is one we love to get this question because it shows that the community wants to see more, wants to learn more about our products and solutions. And for that, we get quite a variety of suggestions. But I would say that's probably one of the largest drivers on why when Chan showed earlier the cross-geo links. For those of you that have been, I'm speaking for the Americas, have used the Americas Lab for quite some time and have asked, hey, can you guys come out with something with tape, or can you come up with some Oracle integration or whatever it might be? We're able to offer that now because if you haven't checked out the EMEA labs yet, or even some of the APJ labs, I think you're in for a treat. And we're hoping to be able to expand and answer some of those requests that you've had out there with more of a global type catalog from now.